Welcome back, everyone, to the next episode of Spidey Swing-Bys. It's time, webheads, to continue on with the story of Spider-Man. Today, we're going to be in Amazing Spider-Man 24. This was written in week 6 of 1965. The release date was February 11th, 1965. The story is entitled Spider-Man Goes Mad, written by Stan Lee, penciled by Steve Ditko, inked by Steve Ditko, lettered by Sam Rosen, edited by Stan Lee. What else was going on in Marvel this month? Quite a lot, as per usual. In Daredevil 7, we have a Battle of the Titans here, one clearly outmatched by the other, where seeking to sue the surface world for polluting the oceans, Namor the Submariner barges into Matt Murdock's office, only to find that this can't legally be done because of a ridiculous claim. So he goes on a rampage, forcing Daredevil to make use of his new costume, thank God getting the yellow into now the red costume, to stop a foe who easily overpowers him and earning Namor's respect along the way. And then we have Journey into Mystery 115. We're continuing on from the earlier story with the Absorbing Man. Loki and the Absorbing Man continue to menace Thor, forcing the Thunder God to work swiftly to defeat them and to face his own trials in regards to Asgard and his place as a god. Then we have Tales to Astonish 67, where Giant Man faces the one-time appearing Hidden Man who seeks to steal power and knowledge from others to conquer Earth, and actually does something interesting in that he makes Hank Pym kind of forget how to shrink. So there's that, and he's not resolved until 30-some issues of Avengers from now, which is quite interesting for a one-note villain who does something lasting. And we also see the Hulk become Bruce Banner and fall under the control of a Mongolian bandit chief named Konga Khan, because that's all people knew about Mongolia, as Glenn Talbot organizes for Banner's release. Then we have Avengers 15, where Baron Zemo has kidnapped Rick Jones and sends the Masters of Evil to combat the Avengers, eventually causing his own death when he triggers an avalanche. Then in Fantastic Four 38, The Frightful Four return to menace the FF once more, with Medusa kidnapping the Invisible Girl. And when they end up on this deserted island, the Frightful Four set off an atomic explosion that almost kills the entire team, were it not for the Invisible Girl's intervention. Then we have Sergeant Fury 17 and the very, shall we say, not racially, what's the word I'm looking for here? Racially minded. It's something else I'm trying to find, but we'll put there. Sergeant Fury and the Howling Commandos, deep in Nazi-controlled Africa, managed to convince an enslaved tribe to help them fight off their oppressors and send them away. Racially conscious. I think that's what I was going for. Then we have Strange Tales 132, where the Human Torch and the Thing get caught up in in a sabotage of a rocket test Johnny's about to be in, and have to find a person responsible in yet another forgettable story for Strange Tales. But then we get to Doctor Strange facing off against Baron Mordo, who is now fully empowered by Dormammu, and Doctor Strange is defeated in an obviously far more superior story. Finally, we have Tales of Suspense, number 65, where Iron Man faces off against someone who gets in one of his other Iron Man outfits. He's a low-time crook who this is his only appearance, and he worries about a secret identity, blah, blah, blah. Then we have a little bit of a flashback where Captain America faces off against the Red Skull with Bucky in a far better tale. But that brings us back to Amazing Spider-Man number 24, where we are going to see a very fun story here, where, we'll just get into it. So starting off, we have Peter there's a knock at the door. This guy who asks for some money, asks for $6.75 for an item to be delivered, and going through the cookie jar, there's not much left. Peter is barely able to scrap $7 to pay it off. Just showcasing their financial woes once more. He realized, well, maybe I haven't been selling pictures of Spider-Man recently, so what if I went out and did that? So he finds a robbery in progress. It's not a movie this time around. He goes to fight the criminals, but as he's there, who else should be there but Frederick Foswell, who is reporting on it and wants to talk to Spider-Man about it, but Peter, very upset, doesn't listen to him because, well, he just lost on the opportunity to make some money because at this point in time, you can't trust Foswell. He doesn't really know what's going on there. But how could he also prove that Peter Parker was there taking pictures if Foswell was there? So realizing all those pictures are now worthless, he already is worried about him finding out his secret identity. Peter decides it's time to go. So he goes to the Bugle to go see Betty, but comes across Jonah and hides away from him because Jonah's already angry at him for not sending him pictures of Spider-Man. So he tries to just talk with her, but in the process finds yet another letter that she's written to Ned Leeds, who is currently in Europe. And this makes him upset, but he tries to play it off all cool and, telling how, how could he be angry with his girl when she writes to some other fellow? Which, by the way, are they dating? Are they not? Who knows? Peter hasn't done enough work to actually establish what the relationship actually is. And later on in this issue, we'll find that he does even worse by getting to another woman. So he tells regards to her pen pal, and he say, "Well, what's wrong with me? Why am I worried about what Betty writes? We're not engaged, yeah, because you haven't defined a relationship or anything, Peter." And he's got to go home. But we also see that Jonah is talking to Fosville about how Spider-Man, stop those punks from, stealing anything. So Jonah, being the spinster that he is, tries to make it about how maybe he was being too brutal to those poor crooks, those poor criminals. Uh, and then, Jonah's got it in his head like Foswell's got to be angry at Spider-Man too. He's the one who, found out that he was a criminal. So he decides a brilliant scheme. I'm going to get other people to write editorials about why they don't like Spider Man, which will increase the sales of my newspaper and turn public opinion against them. But there's one person who stands against the mob, one man who's righteous enough to do so, and that is Flash Thompson, who decries anyone who dares say anything against Spider Man. He proclaims himself, the captain of the Midtown High football team and Spider Man's greatest fan. And he threatens the poor newspaper reporter who's trying to get away from him as Liz Allen is talking up to Peter. We're continuing on that love triangle. Flash is, of course, very upset with how this is going on. He tries to tell Peter and thinks, now I'm going to beat him up because Flash isn't fully reformed just yet. And decides, no, he's going to do it in front of a crowd. Jameson, meanwhile, is happy about what's happening in his paper, and as Betty introduces him to a Dr. Ludwig Reinhardt, which is not the Reinhardt that I'm more familiar with, which is family, which is spelled with an H after the river. So there's that. And he says, I was here on vacation as a psychiatrist. He's very interested in Spider-Man, and he thinks he's a very sick man. Why is that? Because he lives in a fantasy world. He wants to be a spider. But of course, he is a human being. It's only a matter of time before it and his ego get so confused and he forgets who he really is, and then he will suffer a severe breakdown. And of course, Jameson, just having a bunch of jargon thrown his way, decides, yeah, that sounds very logical. And decides to use this new doctor to prove that Spider-Man is a nut. Of course, is printed in the paper. Peter is very upset. Aunt May is just not helping matters, and that she already thinks Spider-Man is a menace too. He talks to Betty for a second to get what he wants instead of actually listening to her, which is another reason their relationship doesn't work out. As he leaves, Flash Thompson is following him. Peter is very not ready to confront that at this moment in time. Tricks him with his spider signal, making him think Spider-Man is around, and then leaves and finds that he's being attacked by an off-color, off-model Doctor Octopus. And as he goes to attack him, noticing that he's so quiet, it's like he's not even there. But then Doctor Octopus disappears because he's not a magician. He's not Doctor Strange. But then the Sandman appears and attacks him, wondering if maybe the Sinister Six are back or something like that. And Spider-Man is very confused. He's wondering if his head's all messed up. You got to go away to clear his brain. And then the Vulture attacks him. Once again, disappears before Spider-Man can do anything. As he's wrestling with this whole thing, he wonders, am I actually going crazy? What's going on here? I've got to go. Maybe if I find that Dr. Reinhardt person, something could happen. He rushes and leaves his house, leaving Aunt May very upset, seeing him in distress. And he goes to Reinhardt's place and sees another illusion where everything is upside down. And Dr. Reinhardt goes to him and says, "Hey, let's talk. Let's talk. Something's going on with your mind." Spider-Man's very upset, and he's worried he's going to harm someone, which is very, very true to Peter at this point in time. That he can't allow something like that to happen. He knows he's way stronger than everyone else. So what if he accidentally sees an illusion and actually punches someone in the face and they die? That would be a terrible way for things to happen. So he's got to be worried about what's going on in his mind. So he trusts this man and he doesn't know, which is enough of a reason for him to do this. I thinks he's going insane. The two then talk about his own psychological background, what's going on in his head. And as this is happening, good old Jolly Jonah is talking with Boswell, and who reveals that he's found something interesting about our Dr. Reinhardt. And Jonah is very upset because this will make him a laughingstock again for printing false information. So Flash is looking around for Peter and Liz and stumbles upon J. Jonah Jameson, is very angry at him, obviously, because he's besmirching the good name of Spider-Man. And he calls himself the president of the Forest Hills fan club of Spider-Man. He wants to protest, and James tells him to beat it. He's got better things to do, and the two of them just keep going back and forth at each other. And it gets to the point where Flash asks, "Why didn't you just pick on the Human Torch or those nutty X-Men?" Which we're not quite at the stage in Marvel history where people fear mutants for being different. There's a little bit of that there, but it's not really to Claremont levels. So I'll extend Flash some grace here, that he doesn't really understand the issues that mutants face. So there's that. Jameson goes through. Flash follows behind him as Peter is talking of his dual identity to Dr. Reinhardt, and says he doesn't want to tell people. There's too many people who get hurt if that happened. But he tries to pull, Dr. Patient confidentiality on him, say, "I'll never let anyone know." And he's about to spill everything when Jameson gets into the room and accuses him of being a fraud. And as a result, he stops Peter from revealing his secret identity to Dr. Reinhardt, which gets Jonah upset when he learns that's exactly what he just did. There's a tussle as Flash gets involved. There's a little four-way brawl going on here as Peter notices that he wasn't imagining things. The furniture was nailed to the ceiling. Everything's upside down. He then tackles Reinhardt and takes off his mask to reveal it is Quentin Beck, Mysterio, who is behind this whole ordeal. This is a great twist. Really love this. It's kind of one of those, you think it might be him, but there's enough in your doubt in your mind to go, what's going on here? He webs him up, and then Mysterio goes over his plans, which were essentially like, look, I was going to make Spider-Man think he was crazy. I was going to use all these things to put these black cats and bats around him to make things like something supernatural may be going on, or maybe he's gone mad. And then Jonah has the realization that Spider-Man would have been beaten if he hadn't have been so angry at Dr. Reinhardt, now Quentin Beck. Flash, of course, takes the moment to share some glee, how Spider-Man beat him and Mysterio, and that he helped him, even though Spider-Man in the process called him a fool. He spoke to me, my idol. And then later on, we see Liz catching up with Peter. I forgot to mention earlier, she had been trying to get his help for science homework, but really to get a little closer to Peter because there's something fascinating about a boy who just keeps, not being a good person around you, but the bad boy stereotype, blah, blah, blah. And she goes with him. They go to his house real quick so that Peter can tell Aunt May everything's okay. And she sees him with another girl that kind of perks her up a little bit. It's not, of course, that nice girl, Mary Jane Watson from next door, but it's still a girl. It's still a nice date. So they help one another. They settle things between them. And she tells him she'll wait up till he gets home. And then we have Peter thinking about how he's made progress at last. Oh, excuse me, this is Liz thinking she has progress with Peter, and he's so much more interesting than that empty-headed Flash. And Peter's thinking, I'd rather be spending my time with Betty, which is a terrible thing to be thinking on a date, even though it's not really a date, but they're going to make it a date. Uh, and he's going to show her for writing Ned Leeds behind his back. But he still hasn't earned that extra money to get to Aunt May. Of course, that Parker luck is in there. He was in the midst of a mental breakdown, so he wasn't thinking I'll sell pictures of Spider-Man. So there's that. As we have the end of the story. This story is very fun. It is one of those you get into the psyche of Peter Parker of what he's worried about could happen if he loses control. Then we have a great villain set up here with Mysterio using everything against him, these illusions to try and get Spider-Man to fess up to who he is, to talk to a trusted doctor who just wants the best for him. And it almost succeeds were it not for Jameson. The grand irony here, a villain fights against another villain, and Spider-Man's identity is safe because of J. Jonah Jameson, who is right in wanting to seek out Dr. Reinhardt and expose him as a fraud. But he loses something as a result of that. It's well played by Stan and Steve here. Another fine story. I mean, it's very hard to find a story in their original run that's bad. We'll get to a couple of them eventually, but this one right here, solid. I'm giving this a 9 out of 10. So what's up next on our docket? Well, that is Amazing Spider-Man number 25, where we get some Spider Slayer action. Jonah is not letting go of his vendetta. So thank you guys for what you do. Please leave a like down below, comments. There's something I missed you want to talk about, let's do that. I'm more than happy to engage with you guys. So until next time, webheads. See ya.